In all honesty, Episode 2 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms doesn't have much happening in the traditional sense. There are no sweeping political revelations, no major deaths, no shocking twists designed to dominate social media discourse the next morning. Instead, Hard Salt Beef is one of those deliberately unhurried early-season episodes that exists primarily to orient the audience, to introduce people, clarify relationships, and quietly lay the groundwork for what is to come. It is a slow walk rather than a sprint, and while that may frustrate viewers conditioned by Game of Thrones to expect constant escalation, the episode ultimately understands exactly what it needs to be. That's not to say the episode is inert. A late burst of violence reminds us that this is still very much the same brutal world as Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. The bloodshed may not define the show in the same way it once did, but it remains an unavoidable part of the setting. Even characters as inherently likable and well-intentioned as Dunk and Egg are unlikely to escape the consequences of living in a feudal society that solves disputes with steel. Hard Salt Beef may be gentle by comparison, but it never lets us forget the danger lurking just beneath the surface. This episode also marks the first sustained stretch of time in which Dunk and Egg function not as two strangers traveling together out of necessity, but as a knight and his squire in earnest. That distinction matters. Their developing friendship becomes the emotional core of the episode, grounding the meandering structure in something personal and human. Egg in particular feels entirely at home. He knows the names, histories, and reputations of nearly everyone they encounter, making the tournament ground seem more like familiar territory than foreign soil. This confidence, of course, is no accident. The episode continues to drop increasingly obvious hints that Egg is not who he claims to be, a secret that longtime fans already know and that online discourse has made difficult to avoid. Still, the show plays coy with the reveal, letting Egg's knowledge and composure speak for themselves. There's something charming about how casually he navigates noble society, especially in contrast to Dunk, who remains acutely aware of his own low-born origins. The relaxed pacing of Hard Salt Beef allows the characters to settle into their roles and gives the audience a chance to understand the specific tone A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is aiming for. Perhaps the most striking difference between this series and Game of Thrones is its sincerity. That earlier show, particularly in its later seasons, often treated earnestness as a weakness. Irony, cruelty, and moral compromise were the currencies of survival. Here, sincerity is the point. Dunk embodies this quality completely. He is not clever in the conventional sense, nor is he particularly strategic, but he possesses a moral seriousness that feels almost anachronistic. He explains that this was instilled in him by Ser Arlen of Pennytree, his mentor and father figure. Arlen was kind, generous, and deeply committed to the ideals of knighthood, even if he was also frequently drunk and chronically overlooked by the noble class. Dunk takes these lessons to heart, and as a result he finds it genuinely offensive that none of the lords he encounters seem to remember Arlen at all. This isn't wounded pride so much as wounded principle. To Dunk, forgetting Ser Arlen is not merely a social slight. It is an indictment of a system that claims to value honor while routinely discarding those who actually live by it. The insult cuts deeply because Dunk believes, perhaps naively, that goodness should be remembered. His indignation gives the episode a moral spine that feels refreshingly straightforward in a universe known for moral ambiguity. The arrival of a Targaryen retinue at the tournament reinforces another important contextual distinction. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is set nearly a century before Game of Thrones. The dragons may be gone, but the Targaryens are still very much in power, and they move through the world with a confidence and legitimacy absent from later eras. Viewers may recognize this from House of the Dragon, but it's a notable contrast to the near-mythical status the family holds in Thrones. Prince Baelor Targaryen in particular stands out as an unexpected figure. As the eldest son of King Daeron II, he is the heir apparent to the Iron Throne, yet he lacks the sharp edges typically associated with his house. He is laid back, approachable, and, most strikingly, brown-haired, a visual departure from the silver-gold image that has become synonymous with the Targaryen name. Baelor's temperament sets him apart from his brother Mikar, who embodies a far more traditional, stern vision of Targaryen authority. There is also an undercurrent of sadness to Baelor's presence. He is quietly resentful, weighed down by the fact that two of his sons have vanished while traveling. This personal loss humanizes him, making him feel less like a symbol of royal power and more like a father burdened by uncertainty. It's a subtle touch, but one that reinforces the show's commitment to character over spectacle. Baelor's connection to Dunk becomes one of the episode's most important turning points. After recalling a past tournament at Storm's End where he competed against Ser Arlen, Baelor becomes the one noble who actually remembers Dunk's mentor. That recognition carries real weight. Thanks to Baelor's endorsement, Dunk is allowed to join the lists, but because he is not related to Arlen by blood, he must compete under his own sigil. This leads to one of the episode's most charming subplots: Dunk's meeting with Tanzel, a traveling puppeteer. Their interaction is immediate and disarming. Dunk falls for her almost instantly, and she, in turn, brings warmth and creativity into his otherwise practical world. He hires her to paint his shield with a simple but evocative design, an elm tree with a shooting star above it, emblazoned over his chalice. The image feels symbolic of Dunk himself, rooted, humble but reaching toward something greater. Beyond Tanzel, Dunk finds support in unexpected places. His drunken tug-of-war with Lionel is played for laughs, but it also serves as a reminder that Lionel remains a looming presence, one whose role will grow more significant as the story unfolds. Dunk's easy rapport with Steely Pate, a blacksmith, further reinforces his ability to connect with ordinary people. He bargains for armor, sells one of his horses, Sweetfoot, with the promise to buy her back if he wins, and even offers a modest sum just to rent a horse for the day. These small, practical decisions ground the episode in lived reality. The episode's closing moments remind us, however, that belief will not make the road easy. The brutality of the tournament combat, staged with seriousness rather than spectacle, is enough to give even Dunk pause. The violence is harsh, grounding the romantic ideals of knighthood in physical reality. Glory comes at a cost, and the cost is often blood. Still, Dunk presses on. His commitment to upholding Ser Arlen's reputation outweighs his fear. In a world as cynical as Westeros, that kind of motivation feels almost radical. Hard Salt Beef may not be explosive television, but it is patient, heartfelt, and confident in its purpose. It understands that before legends are forged, they must be lived, one earnest decision at a time.